Good morning, attendees. Good morning, panelists. Good morning out there on Facebook Live. I'm hoping it's going to carry on recording as I'm not really checking it, to be honest. It says on my screen that it's Facebook Live. Welcome to the next in the Why Don't You series. This one is Why Don't You number 15. Why don't you do a standards check lesson every time? Kev's been delayed, so Kev will be along in a minute. We do have Neil, Sammy and Terry here, which is helping us out, and then we'll just wait for a bit. Who haven't I asked for a while? Neil, can you tell me what you think, in your opinion, you want out of this, or what you think the subject's going to be about?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people are doing what you should do for a standards check on every lesson, really. I can't see why you shouldn't do that, to be quite honest. And my question would be to everybody, it's not just a practice, so why not just do what we should do on a daily basis?
Yeah, nice one. Terry, there you are. Couldn't find you on the screen. Terry, have you got any thoughts about what you want from the session? Because you're always a bit surprised that you're here. I think somebody just tells you you've got to do it now. I'm sure you don't actually know.
No, not really. What I want from the session, a tough one actually. I just like, again, it's like most sessions, old sessions. I like to hear what other people are thinking, what other people feel about stuff, and it just helps me kind of. My word is gives me an idea of where. Oh, what am I trying to say? I have no idea. Is it Friday yet?
I love Sammy.
Give me a chance to reflect back on stuff what other people have said.
Yeah.
There you go. That's what I want.
I think I'm with you on that. So I tend to react to what's going on. I don't have a particular format for this, because I think that's what we all do. We just come here and we have the open discussion as it goes. So yeah, brilliant. Remember, attendees, we've got some new attendees apart from the ones I mentioned earlier. So we've got new attendees sitting there. If you guys have got questions, remember to ask. Hopefully someone can keep an eye on. Neil, you're usually really good at keeping an eye on what questions the attendees are answering. Ask him. Sammy, what are your thoughts on it, this session?
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot on the Facebook groups, don't you, of people saying it's not a normal lesson. And I get asked a lot about that. And I even had a question, I don't know if you want it now or later.
I think in a bit we might start off with that one, but not just yet.
Yeah. And so there's a bit of I think this, I think that, there's for and against. Some people believe that it's just a show, and some people think, well, no, it's not. Like, I believe that you should always strive for excellence in your lessons. You should always be delivering the very best lesson, and not just on the standards check.
Yeah. Because what I'd like to come out from today is the reasons why that it's structured that way, the reasons why the SC1 form, the marking form, is structured in the way it is. The reasons behind it, I think, are going to be very interesting. What I would like to get across right from the start is this is not aimed to be a criticism of any trainer or PDI or ADI. It's not meant to be a criticism of any of the standards or things that they train with. What we're looking for is opinion and thought and processing, just to challenge some people if they might, because what I love is it refreshes things for me. These meetings and these webinars really refresh things and get me to think about things in a different way, because I hear the same information but from a different perspective, and I think it just ignites things. And I think that's what I want, but we're not aiming to criticize or critique any other trainer or training provider. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
So if you
No.
hear conflicting information, yeah, Terry, yeah. I'm thinking other things for why don't you, Terry? We can only criticise Terry. And remember, guys, panelists, your job is to steal Terry's thunder constantly throughout this. So anytime you see Terry's hand put up, remember to steal. Has anyone else got anything to say on the matter before we just get cracking on and going into why we need to do the same things or have that kind of standard? You guys are right. Right, Sammy, I think we should go for your one first, because that is a major concern. If you could read that one out. Remember, you're muted.
Okay, yeah, just let me find it again. So it's from a PDI who wishes to remain anonymous for their own reasons. And they have had a conversation with their trainer, and it's come out as this. So, hi, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind putting this to the panel. I'm confused and conflicted about this. My trainer says the part 3 is a big show and nothing like a real lesson. He says you should practice the lesson 100 times and it will become easy. He also says that to do the lesson with your pupil that you are taking on the day, and then tell them it will be the same lesson again. To give yourself the best chance, take someone who is a good driver, but get them to make mistakes on certain things and show them where to make mistakes. The trainer also says the part 3 is just fake because you don't normally talk about the dual controls on every lesson or ask if someone's had drugs and all of that stupid stuff. Nor how you will take control, etc. I'd like to know the thoughts of the panel on this one, please.
Great. I've heard 3 points to be discussed within that. So the drugs and the dual controls, can we discuss that later? Agreed? You guys help me remember that and share your thoughts on that. The first point, who wants to go first on that about it's all a big show? Right, Neil was first and then Mick and then Di, I think.
Okay,
good, I'm glad so many hands went up.
So on that, what I'd like to point out is the fact that as I was watching the screen and Sammy was reading that out, Mick's body language said it all. His face was just grimacing. So it can't be a show. It's just got to be a natural thing, I believe. You know, you can't put it on. You can't, if you're practicing coaching and working properly with a student, it's not effort. It can't be put on. It's worse when you try to put it on than when you try to just do it normally. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, my thought on whoever that PDI is go you for trusting your instincts on this one. If you're uncomfortable with it, it's because that doesn't sit right with you as a person. Trust yourself. I love it. I love it. Because Sammy sent us that before, so I had warning about what that message was that you received. And I just really want to say, trust your instincts. Think about what you want to deliver your training, because that's what that's about. That's what the part 3 is all about. I think that's what each part is, but it's bringing together all that you've learned from the other 2 parts. It's sort of bringing it together. So trust your instincts on that, and investigate ways you can get what you want, I think. But that's the first thing. Who was next? Mick, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, to me it's very much it sounds like they're teaching to pass the part 3, you know, doing the lesson 100 times and it'll come natural or whatever it was, and it's just not right for me. It just doesn't sit right for me. Instead of teaching to training them to teach, it's actually a tick boxing exercise, and that's the way it seems to be that whoever this PDI is being pushed towards, so that once they do qualify, then they'll go back to the old ways. And it also hit me of more of like PSTs. My trainer when I qualified used to say something similar. Just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, you'll get it. Well, that's not teaching me to go out there in the real world. But we should be doing the same. We should be teaching the same style, whether we are the same sort of manner, whether we're on a normal lesson or on a part 3 or standards check.
Yeah.
Not setting up the examiners. They know when something's staged. I speak to one of ours quite regular, and she knows when it's staged.
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say, I think the examiners are getting particularly good at recognising that now.
Yeah.
And I think that's why for both the standards check, can't say too much, but for the standards check, the Steve's not there, but his cat's replaced him. For the standards check, that's why the pass rate hasn't changed. It's still the same, because I think the examiners are much better at recognising, hey, this is, Mick, I think what you're saying is it's similar to, because I think we've all met in the past, driving instructors, qualified driving instructors that just teach to test, and they teach test routes, specific test routes. And I think that it's ringing true of the same kind of thing. So it's, I'm just as uncomfortable. Thanks, Mick. Have you got something else? Have you? I'm just checking that you've finished.
No. That's I'll let Di have a go now.
Yeah. Di was taking notes. Di's on this one.
Hopefully,
Di's on this one like a ton of bricks. Come on, Di. Come on, give it to us.
Yeah, I'm going to be very, very careful here. I think again, it's open to interpretation. We don't actually know what was said or how it was interpreted, but the way it's come across, I agree with Mick in a lot of ways. That this PDI is being trained to pass a Part 3, but unfortunately they're not being trained to pass a Part 3 either. They're not being trained to be a driving instructor, and they're not being trained to pass a Part 3, because if this PDI takes that advice, they will not pass their Part 3. The 3 criteria the examiner is looking for: value for money, is a car being kept safe, and is learning taking place. Now, if the examiner, and they will recognise if it's practiced, recognises that, that's almost an automatic fail. And secondly, if that learner doesn't appear to be learning something because they already know how to do it, that's a big no-no. And if they take their best driver, what are they going to teach them? So neither is he teaching him to pass a Part 3 or her. But then, I mean, that PDI, if they were to pass a Part 3, how were they then going to deliver another lesson? Crazy stuff.
Yeah, you sound quite passionate about that, Di.
Bad.
I'm hearing it. It's interesting when you know someone, isn't it? It is interesting. Yeah, I agree. It's those 3 things. They're vital. They're absolutely vital. Yeah. Thanks, Di. Steve.
It almost sounds like that they're still kind of harking back to the kind of PST days where it was almost, to a certain degree, the response that you were going to get from the examiner could almost be scripted. So if you went over it enough, if you said the right words at the right time, they would do the right thing, because what you had was a trained driver pretending to be something else. That's just not going to work anymore. It's, and as everyone said, we've not disputed anything that the PDI said. None of us were in the car. We don't, it's one of those things, we don't know how it's been said. But I think this is where it comes into the fact where a lot of people still, even now on the Facebook groups, or when I was still in them, they used to say that the standards check is a pantomime. Whereas I never did an old style check test, But from what I can understand of the old style check tests, they seemed more like a pantomime than the new standards check, because there's stuff that you just can't get away with. You can't role play, which is basically what this trainer is asking the PDI to do, is role play their standards check. You can't do that. One little thing goes wrong, which it will. And, you know, I think we're all pretty much aware that you can have the best driver in the world, best learner in the world. You put somebody else in the back, they'll revert 20 hours within a matter of minutes. Something's going to go wrong. It's going to go off script. It's going to.
Well, I
Sorry,
think,
I'm
yeah.
being attacked.
I think you're right, but it's dealing with, you know, dealing with the risk, and that risk management section is so massive. And if you're not accustomed to being able to deal with a dangerous situation by preventing it in a way, you know, in the ways that we know how, like drawing someone's attention to something, for example. But it's those kind of things that are going to show up, and I think that's what Di was referring to.
But also,
Terry,
you're not
have you
looking
got
for
anything
it.
to say? Yeah. So, and I think they're much better at it now. I think you can see scripted a mile off. Terry, have you got anything to say?
Well, I'm purposely staying quiet because when Samuel, like you said, when Samuel sent that message through half an hour ago, I was actually angry. My first emotion was, nearly.
Thank
Nearly.
you. Thank you.
My first instinct was, what the hell? But I've calmed down a bit, and I went from anger to frustration to then, I hope this PDI's got it wrong. I hope it doesn't sound as bad as it does. But the thing is this isn't an isolated comment. We've heard this many, many times from PDIs about trainers. It's quite sad, really. But what Di said, she stole my thunder.
Good. 1-0 to everyone else. Sammy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm really thankful that PDI did reach out, and I hope that we've answered their question. And, you know, I'll continue to liaise with that person and help them find a better trainer for them, because they've already said they're not happy with that trainer, so they don't mind me saying that. But thank you for being brave enough, really, to come and ask that question for us to answer.
There were another 2 parts to it.
Yeah, which we'll get around to.
Well, we could do it now, but I've forgotten what they were.
So
I should have written them down.
You've got drugs and controls.
Drugs and controls. Rather than me jump in, who's going to answer that first? You're unmuted, Neil. Any thoughts? Has anyone else got any thoughts upon the?
With the controls, it's just agreeing, really, having agreement of who's going to be responsible for what, and it's that conversation between the two of you, so that you both understand who's got that responsibility for that set task.
Yeah.
I
think, yeah, in my opinion, the best answer to that is the reason the confusion came in the first place. When you read the examiner's notes, oh, sorry, Di, do you want to do your bit? When you read the examiner's notes, in the examiner's notes, they give a couple of examples of this was something you should be saying, and this is something that you need to address, and this wouldn't be correct. So they give an example, but it is not, you don't have to say it each and every time. But if somebody is new to you, and you could take a brand new driver with you, in which case it would be important, vital kind of, wouldn't it, to explain the use of dual controls. And I think where they're giving examples, people sometimes read or interpret, you have to say that every time. And I don't believe. And they're saying an example could be. But where people have read it, and I think that's early on what happened, and it could be that the examiner I don't know. The examiners were new to it as well. Surely they couldn't be perfect at it straight away. Di?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like learners are very similar. You teach people to drive and then you teach them exam technique. And I think it's very similar with PDIs and the Part 3. You have to remember there are 3 people in the car and the examiner has to be aware of what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
That statement at the beginning about dual controls is all part of how you are going to manage the risk once the car starts to move. And it's actually putting the pupil at rest to know that if they're concentrating on achieving the goal with your help, that you're going to take care of everything else and how you're going to do that. And that's a very small part of that risk management, because you, first of all, you've got to watch your pupil. The next thing you're going to do is if they don't do something, they're not responding to do something, you've got to prompt it. And if they're still not responding, you're going to tell them how to do it. And if they still don't respond, you're going to use your dual control. That's all part of risk management and how you're going to manage it. Now, whether that is a full license holder or whether that is a student in early stages or test standard, it really doesn't matter, because it's all part of how you're going to manage the risk. It's not just a statement that you make at the beginning of a lesson.
Absolutely, totally agree. And I think, I mean, I even do it when it's not much of a risk, but in the same way, when I set up the webinars and I put the you know, this on Facebook, some people don't understand the difference between attendee and panelist. So they want to know, so that's why I actually write it in the description. If you want to be an attendee, you sit there as an attendee and you're not seen. And it's just managing the risk. If people feel that being on the screen is a risk for them, they want to feel sure. And it's just agreeing with things. You're just agreeing with an adult. This is how it's going to work. Yeah, and it's literally it. But I think we do it all over the place. We do it all over the place. Steve.
I think as well there can be some confusion with risk management. Some people hear that and think hazard perception.
Yeah.
So, and then there just becomes this big running commentary throughout the entire lesson. So where they're just barking at their pupils. So what are the risks now? What are the risks now? What different things, very, very different things. But as for going back to the question when they said about, do you mention it at every lesson? I think yes, but it's in what form and what variation. As you said, pitch the lesson to the learner. If it's somebody that's had loads of lessons, you're not going to sit there and explain what the dual controls do. You're just going to mention that you're ready to use them if they're needed. You're ready to help if that help's required. But then also make, about roles and responsibilities, isn't it? As you say, just so everybody else knows basically what everybody in the car is supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But it can be a conversation.
It is.
It doesn't have to be, again, back to a script to make it a conversation.
Absolutely. So if the person gets in the car and you say, hiya, how are you? And they go, I feel dreadful. Got the really horrible dogs. And I'm all right, though. I'm all right. I want my lesson. But they're really stuffed up. What's the risk there, guys? If someone's really poorly.
At the moment.
At the moment, absolutely, there's a big risk. Yes. Thank you, Steve, being quick as ever. But could they have taken medication? And some of the over-the-counter stuff will have the drowsy effect. So that, I think, is what the examiner's looking for, the interaction and the conversation. Yeah, so I think that's it. That surely would be a risk. And that's when you're talking about drugs. It's not have you had a joint today necessarily. It's have you taken any medication and what is it? Is there anything on Facebook that we need to address? Any Facebook people?
There's a question as well, Fiona.
There's a question. Can you do that one, Neil?
Yeah, so Steph asks, I find the opening of the lesson the hardest thing sometimes to get it right, not being too light or too heavy on goals, topic, responsibilities and testing their knowledge. It's not an easy thing to get naturally. Any tips? What does everybody think on that?
How long has she got?
Yeah, maybe that's another Zoom thing.
Possible,
The opener.
yeah.
That's a possible Zoom topic, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
it is a possible Zoom topic. Yeah, I think that would. I think we're all stumped with that because it's quite big. Can you say it again, Neil?
It says, I find the opening of the lesson the hardest thing sometimes. To get it right, not being too light or too heavy on the goals topic, responsibilities and the testing their knowledge. It's not an easy thing to get naturally. Any tips?
Do some of it the week before, maybe, because then there's less. Because then someone's already had some of those thoughts and they'll come back. So they're going to bring. That's my first tip. Anyone else got anything better than that?
I would probably say practice it a few times and self-reflect on it and see your own performance and how you feel.
Absolutely, record it. See if it feels too long. Ask, get some feedback from them. Yeah, Guy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Fiona. I think if people use reflective logs at the end of the previous lesson, it gives them somewhere to start at the beginning of the next one. Examiners love reflective logs anyway. If you bring that out straight away, and it's almost having a reflective conversation and ensuring that, you know, what they said they wanted to do last time is actually what they want to do and why they want to do that, what skills they're bringing to the table and what they need in order to achieve it.
Yeah, again, it's in the standards check documentation. They even print off one that people have the opportunity to use. I see you, Terry, but I kind of want to just ignore you, so you carry on with the chair dancing.
Hang on, I think I've still got something to say. I obviously haven't stolen his thunder yet.
Yeah, you still no, it's okay. Phil's got your back, Di. Phil's gonna do it. Phil, go on, steal his thunder.
Yeah, probably not actually. I'm sort of going back to Steve's last comment, and the word that keeps cropping up and what everybody is saying is conversation. It is a conversation. It's not something to be scripted as such. When you're having a conversation, it can go off in all sorts of different directions. It's just as long as you are sharing that responsibility and making people aware of who's responsible for what. It's done conversationally. It's not something that needs to be a full scripted piece of well, I don't know what word is I'm looking for. Not full prose. That's a good word. Yeah, it just needs to be conversational. So the more rapport you've got with your pupil, the more relaxed your conversations will be, and all these things will just come out naturally.
Absolutely.
That's on your thunder, Terry.
Yeah, off you go then, Terry.
Well, I've got to leave again.
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
Not again. And it's a massive subject. You're right. It's probably good for the whole Zoom by itself. A whole why don't you by itself? But just to try and deal with a tiny part of that question, it's like, I like an analogy, as you know. It's like when you're watching Netflix and you're starting the next show. That first 30 seconds, 1 minute is have that little recap what happened last time in the show, so you haven't forgotten. And just look at it like that. It's just going over quick what happened in the last show before we start the next show, just as a reminder. And that covers a tiny bit of that question.
Brilliant. Yeah, I like that. The what happens next. Sammy, did you have your hand up or were you just doing something earlier?
No, I was just wiping my eyes and things. You're right, carry on.
Okay, I've got you, Linda. Off you go.
I would just say, don't try too hard. Just go with the flow. See where the conversation takes you. You know what you've got to cover. But just take it, as Phil says, just take it naturally. Just literally go with the flow. See where it goes, and just don't try too hard. Because I think we can all sit there and I've got to cover this and I've got to cover that. You know what you've got to cover, but just take it nice and naturally, and don't stress about it. and the conversation will then begin to flow. If you're calm and you're easy on yourself, don't be too hard on yourself, because it'll happen.
That's it. It's about that learning. It's about that learning environment, Linda. Yeah, because if we come across as, I don't even know what that is. It's an F, probably for, yeah, I'm not talking to you yet. I'm responding to Linda. It was backwards though, Terry. It just looked like you were doing some sort of, wicked pose.
Yeah, blood.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. I think we'll have to. I agree, and it could be the urgency, because what it sounds like is that effort.
It's effort,
Responding
isn't
to
it?
I really want to help. I want to help you now. I want to do it all. I want to, and I like that. So
Yeah.
I've forgotten who asked the question. It was
Steph.
It was Steph.
Yeah.
I love it because it's lovely enthusiasm. Got your Mick, dies first. But I think that's what you're responding to, Linda, is you detect that that Steph is really nice, and she just really wants to.
She wants to help.
Yeah.
She wants to really help, and she wants to do everything.
So again, acknowledge the wonderful of what you're saying, Steph. And I think, Linda, I think you're right. Spot on. Lovely.
Thank you.
Di, before Mick.
Yeah, again, I think another difference between standards check and a real life lesson, and it's probably the only difference really, is that we have the luxury, if you like, in a real life lesson for conversations to go on for as long as you need them to go on for. Whereas in a standards check, there has to be, a balance between practice and talking. So at the beginning of the lesson, a lot of PDIs that I've taken out make a mistake of going off half-cocked without enough information. So I think it's really important not to get the car moving too soon until there is a SMART goal actually set and everybody knows what they're doing, how much help you're giving, and that sort of thing. On the other hand, I probably wouldn't, as say in a lesson, we try to look at thoughts and feelings. And I think if we try to set a goal around feelings on a standards check, that conversation might take too long. So it's getting that balance right, between too short and too long. So it's just keeping a conversation, looking at those 4 main competencies in lesson planning, and make sure you look at those and just hold a conversation around those. And that should be enough to set it up.
Yeah, because there's also the time just before you arrive at the test centre, because very few people probably turn up and then have that first conversation in the car with them.
Exactly, Fiona, and all they need to say in front of the examiner is, you remember the conversation we just had about?
Yeah,
that's enough.
and kind of just summarise it.
Examiner in the picture. It's just keeping them in the picture.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Mick.
Yeah, I was going to mention something similar to what Di said, but also with what Phil said about having the conversation, it's got to be natural as well. So you can't go in there with pre-planned questions, really. You've got to listen to what the client's saying, what the learner's saying, and your next question has got to come from that, and then it will be more natural rather than pre-planned and I've got to say this, got to ask this question. Just let it flow. Like I think Linda said that, go with the flow. And to do that, you've got to listen to what they're saying and go with them.
Yeah,
I agree with what Di said as well.
Yeah, keeps
Obviously.
it very client-centered. My apologies to you on Facebook. I know there's a big delay, and then there's a big delay because I try and finish off. It's very hard to know what the Facebook thing is, to know when to fit it into the conversation. Terry, tell us the Facebook thing.
We have got a question from a PDI who's failed. He's been around 8 times. He's failed his part 3 8 times. He's been around the block 8 times. So good for you. First of all, I've got to find it. It's gone again. And he really doesn't get coaching apparently. It's someone called Kev Field. He says, he's going to punch me next time. He says, what is the difference? I think she's back to the original Sammy's question from that PDI. What is the difference between preparing and planning a standards check, or are they the same? He says he's asking for a friend as he might not have seen the beginning of this. So difference between planning and preparing for a standards check.
Who's going to go on that? Sammy, go for it.
Hang on, sorry. Right, from my perspective, I'll just talk from my perspective for a minute. Is that I took my standards check in York, but I don't live in York, I live in Hull. And so part of my preparation was just to get to know the areas around that area, where I could actually get to within so many minutes, depending on which direction I went in. So I went and kind of geeked out on the areas. So that would be like preparation, really. On yeah, you're laughing because you know how much I geek out on things.
Because I know you. Yeah.
But a preparation, I would say, that's in yourself, in your own skills. So, like we were talking about, the conversational skills, the listening skills, knowing how to listen and what kind of questions to come back from with that listening, going two-way. But I think what a lot of PDIs struggle with is on that day of the test. There's that many things going around in the head, of course, and it's normal when you're under that pressure situation. And so what they tend to do is have a list of things, a bullet list of things that they want to cover in that initial conversation at the beginning. And having tried that myself in the past and then just gone in without that list, with the skills there, without the skills there, so I've done both. And really, it's so much more comfortable if you can have those skills in place. So preparation-wise would be to make sure your skills are up to date. Everything will then flow nicely. But with those bullet lists, you can't get that natural flow because you're forever looking down at your bullet points, your bullet lists. And then you get lost and you think, where am I? I've lost my place. Which bullet point did I cover? And then you're not listening to or taking notice of what the PDI is doing, the learner is doing, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's about
centered on ourselves.
Preparing yourself mentally, skill-wise, and everything else.
So in the moment, if I could just rephrase that a different way, what you're saying is then the person is focused on the list and then therefore internally rather than externally on what that person wants.
Yeah.
So they're focused here rather than being the focus there.
So that immediately puts up a barrier, doesn't it, to the flow, shall we say?
Yep, and concentrating on them a little bit more.
Yeah.
Too much. Di? And then Terry. She was first, Terry.
I think it takes us right back to the original question, Fiona. Preparing for me, you've got 4 years to prepare.
Stop.
Stop
talking.
If you treat every single lesson like a standards check, your standards check isn't the problem. So the only preparing you have to do is, as Sammy said, make sure that you're choosing an appropriate route for the pupil and that you have a way to adapt the lesson if you need to. So make it easier if you need to, or make it more challenging if you need to. That's the only planning really you need to do, because the preparation you've been doing for the last 4 years, or should be. So it should be quite natural.
Yeah, I think the original question came via a PDI. I think.
Yeah. But I mean the original question for the Zoom meeting. You
Yeah.
know, why
Yeah.
do a standards check lesson every lesson?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. Terry, have you got anything to add to Di's thunder? Little bit
Yeah,
of
I'm
rain.
driving to Norfolk. I'm driving to Norfolk now. I'm going to put a gag on there for next until lockdown's finished. I have got something to add. Actually, Di, in your face, man.
I'm vulnerable. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I think, like, as Di said, your standards check preps starts the very next lesson after your standards check. And I like to use the analogy of the dentist this time. You've gone to the dentist, you promised to listen to their advice, and and you promised to floss and all that, and you might do it for a couple of days, but then you go back to normal. You go back into your what you used to do, and then you get a letter again. Another 6 months, you do a checkup. You go, oh, okay. So that point now between the next appointment, have the dentist, you might brush for a bit longer. You might start reflossing again. You might brush twice a day. You might put extra toothpaste on your toothbrush in the hope that the dentist won't notice. Guess what? They bloody will. If you have brushed your teeth and you get nervous as well, you also take this and think, oh, they're going to find out. Oh, I kind of, you know. If you've brushed your teeth as they told you to from the last time you saw the dentist, you are going to have no problems, no fears, nothing going to the dentist next time because you know you've kept it up. Finished.
Yeah, well, it was quite a good one. Steve, did you hear that? Did you hear that, Steve? Steve. Sorry, a conversation before the Zoom actually started. Di, were you following on from Terry? Because otherwise it's Linda.
No, you stole my thunder. It's fine.
Linda.
Well, I was just going to say, I can honestly say that my standards check was an absolute rubbish lesson, and every other lesson leading up to my standards check were brilliant. So I'm glad I didn't do I'm glad I didn't. I'm sorry I didn't do a normal lesson on my standards check because my standards check was rubbish. But I still maintained an A, which is really, I must have been doing something right, but it wasn't to the standard of a normal lesson.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that comes in with the conversation, but
well, I think it's maintaining. I think
it's maintaining.
It's maintaining something. So
yeah.
So going back to the PDI, I think the PDI needs to really take a look at the skills that they have, not about the lessons they're giving. Would anyone else? Am I wrong with that?
Yeah. No, I agree.
The 8 times person. Just take a look at yourself. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was. I feel really bad. I feel really bad.
Kev.
Thanks, Linda.
Kev was the 8-time person.
It was Kev.
You've missed it.
Oh yeah,
Terry
it was
being
Kev.
silly.
Yeah.
What?
Terry being
Kev.
silly.
Well, let's just. It's Kev. And that's
But
why
I think
Kev does all his other things.
I think what I'm trying
I've
to
got
say
you,
really.
Steve, after Di.
Sorry,
Linda.
I think what I'm trying to say is without the skills and without keeping up with what was there, I probably wouldn't have passed because it was absolute rubbish. In my opinion, it was worse than a normal lesson. But there was obviously something there that that was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And without keeping up with the skills, then it wouldn't have been right.
Yeah. I hear you. Nice.
Your safety blanket is your skills.
Yeah. Di and then Steve.
Can I ask Linda a question? Linda, why do you think it was that on your standards check you gave a poorer lesson than you did with the previous lessons before it?
There were many factors. and outside influences. For one thing, I was late. It was 8:30 in the morning. I did try and change it. I was unable to change it. I'd already had 2 standards checks cancelled by the DVSA, and I wanted to get it out of the way. This sounds all excuses. My mum was dying, and I knew that while she was here, I knew sort of where I was with it. So I needed to get it out of the way. I didn't want it to go on to after Christmas when I didn't know if my mum was going to be here or not. It's just a lot of outside influence factors that, you know, I wasn't feeling it, basically.
I mean, I only asked Linda because I think you've done really, really well to get an A under those circumstances. You know, and it just shows that you have honed your skills so well that it didn't matter that all that stuff was going on. You know, I hear so much from ADIs, PDIs of, you know, I was nervous on the day or whatever. I mean, that to me is sometimes due to lack of preparation. And it's sometimes because when they're in the car, they're taking more notice of the examiner than they are of the pupil. If they were to focus on their pupil 100%, they would forget that the examiner was in the back.
Yeah, and I think you do.
So well done you, because that's brilliant. And it proves a point in a way, that because you'd honed your skills and prepared so well, that you still managed to get an A, even all that stuff was going on. You still managed to do it. Fantastic.
Thank you.
It's true. It is true. Absolutely spot on. Spot on. Yeah, well done, Linda.
Thank you.
Love you. Steve.
Just kind of following on from what Di said there. I mean, when my standards check was coming up, I wrote copious amounts of notes, bullet points, to the point where it actually almost became a bit of an obsession. Writing this stuff out, it's like, oh, I must have this in front of me. I need this there. Within 30 seconds of the car moving, it was on the floor, and I didn't pick it up once because I knew I couldn't. I knew I couldn't focus on that and then also on what I was supposed to be doing. I will say though, I think making those notes did help a little bit. Almost a bit like a mind map, if you will, of my own kind of stuff. And the examiner even said the only time it really came close to going wrong was when I asked the wrong question at the wrong time. And the only reason I know that I did that was because it had been silent for a while. And I was thinking, what is that examiner thinking? I haven't said anything. So I think exactly as Di was saying, almost you've got to try and forget that it's there. And there is, as I've learned through training with you guys, there's nothing wrong with silence. But then I saw it as a massive, massive issue, the fact that you know, couldn't hear a damn thing. And I was just like, I've got to say something. And I said it as we were going round and roundabout, which was possibly the worst time to do it. But that's where your own nerves kick in.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with making notes. Just be aware the chances of you actually being able to look at them are very, very slim.
I love what you're saying, Steve, because when you write in those notes, isn't it because you're reflecting so deeply?
Yeah, definitely. It's just, I mean, I respond very well sometimes. As I said, I'm a big fan of getting stuff out of my head and onto paper. I don't make sense of it all the time in my head. You know, we talk about these different learning styles, whereas whenever I've taken one of these VARCs or VACs, I come up, literally, I score straight down the middle on all of them. So I gain information from every single one of those. I'm not one or the other. But I think, as I said, you're reflecting on what you know, but don't think you're going to be able to write the answers to the questions, because you're not going to know what questions are going to get asked. So don't think you can write an answer to it.
Yeah. I think what I've been reminded of is when you write your things down, or when somebody verbalizes something, even when it's like when you talk to a friend, when you have that phrase, a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think that's what reflection is. As soon as you verbalize it, write it, what other things you do? Record it, look at it on your video. If you're videoing yourself in the car, and a lot of people do that these days because we've all got the dash cams. A lot of people do all of those things so they can see and hear what they're saying. Yeah, no, it's really valid. Thanks, Steve. Di, it was an hour ago. Have you forgotten? Di? No, you weren't going to say anything. Oh, right. I thought you put your hand up. No one put their hand up. Right.
There's some
Just going back
questions.
to, there is a question?
There's some questions on the little chat here,
Okay.
or comments.
Yeah. Who was looking after those? Right.
It would be best to get a novice more work, and you forget the examiners in the back.
So there's an opinion. Certainly something to do.
I think it's vital to choose someone who will interact with you and have something to work on. Yeah.
Someone you get on with, I always think. Yeah, that's who I always think. Someone you get on with. So can I ask the panelists to put their hands up? Do you? All right, thanks. See, the trouble is, when everybody likes me, they all take the mickey. Every single one of you did it all at the same time. Right then, put your hands down for a second. I'm going to ask a question. Do all of you do a standards check style lesson every single time you deliver a driver training session? Terry doesn't. Terry doesn't.
Doesn't mean I don't try to, but sometimes it's just awful.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. But in that you're attempting to, and that was the question. The important bit was the attempt.
Oh, sorry.
So you messed it up. Terry, you break everything.
I'm fired again.
Were there any more questions? Because it still comes up on my screen as chat. So if somebody could get rid of those when they're cleared, or you don't think it's important. Otherwise, I kind of look at them and I try and think. I didn't allocate someone to do a recap. Ooh.
Someone's
Terry.
asked if they can see more of Steve's cat.
So which bit do you want to see? The underneath, Steve. We'd like to see the underneath side of your cat. That's just the head. I think you should pick the cat up, and I think we'd like to see the paws, the underneath side of the paws, and
they've
not the
already
pencil
spent
sharpener
most of
bit.
it chewing the cord off.
Right. Right. I don't want to see the pencil sharpener bit. I've seen enough cat pencil sharpeners in my time. Terry, are you going to do a recap, or are you going to do a rubbish one? Oh,
Yeah,
what's
if you want
that? A
to.
question?
No,
Question
brilliant.
or a chat?
Mixed dog.
Danny's-
Question from Kelly. How do you manage any nerves you may feel on your standards check part 3?
Ooh. Anyone got any answers? Sammy and Di.
It comes back to practice those skills and being comfortable. Because if you think about where you're most confident at doing things in life, just everyday things, and think about why you're confident at those things. So you're really confident to go and make a cup of tea because you've been doing that for years and years. So it's very similar in practicing your skills in the car. That helps with nerves. But even I get very, very nervous. So I go to breathing. I focus on other things that are completely irrelevant to what I'm doing. Bring it back. Yeah, standing like that. Like Fiona is now, making yourself big, all of those tricks. But I think having the skills in the first place and being confident with everything does help with the nerves, but you can still get them. So like I say, breathing and all those wonderful techniques are always good.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sammy. I did stand like a Wonder Woman kind of character because hasn't anyone ever wondered why I seem to be standing up for Zooms or for webinars?
You stand like a winner.
Well,
Have you got piles?
no one can usually tell if I'm standing up or sitting down. Is the usual joke because I'm so short. But it just helps me. It isn't about doing anything other than being the best version of me. But power posing, I can put a video link on the thread just in case anyone hasn't seen it. But power posing works for me, and it isn't anything other than just I don't have to do it now as such. It's just I have ways of so it's how do you do it?
Can I tack on?
No, it's die.
Oh,
Go
just
on,
let me
Tammy.
just one word: visualization.
Yes, yeah. So it's all of those things. There's all of those techniques. Hopefully, people will put in the thread on Facebook Live. People will put in the things about it's breathing. Deep breathing reduces cortisol and adrenaline. The oxygen actually redresses the levels. Di was next, then Steve, then Terry.
Okay, I think there are different levels of nervousness. It all comes down to preparation. I think most of you know how long I've been doing this job. If I was to say that I'm coming up to my 9th standards check, I still get nervous, and yet I train this every single day. And I still get nervous. But I think sometimes nerves can give you the edge if you use them correctly. So the way that I'm prepared for it, but I still get nervous. So the way that I prepare for it, as Sammy says, is visualization. It's knowing your stuff. It's taking a deep breath, and just saying, okay, I've got this. I've got this. And then focusing 100% on your pupil's needs. And that's the only way that you can do it. But, unlike everybody else, as soon as that letter comes through the door, it's like, here we go. So it's absolutely natural, and don't worry about feeling nervous. It's absolutely natural.
Yeah, I think everybody who's in an Olympic final or any kind of competitive, it's managing the nerves so you've got that little bit of adrenaline, not too much, isn't it? It's managing it and making the levels agreeable rather than overwhelming. Thanks, Di. Steve. Mick.
I think, first of all, forgive yourself for being nervous. I think you'd have more to worry about if you weren't nervous, to be honest. I think that would signify a slightly bigger problem if you weren't nervous. When I was getting ready for mine, I asked friends, my partner, sit in the back, just to have somebody else there. I think it's important to aware as well that anybody within reason can have a look at that, the SC1, and kind of get an idea of what's going on, because that SC1 form can be taken into any kind of coaching situation. It can be taken anywhere, really. It works everywhere. And I think it's, like you say, forgive yourself. Like I said, forgive yourself for being nervous. Allow it to happen. Because what do we say to our learners? I don't think any of us these days say, don't be nervous, because what does that even mean? Don't be nervous. If someone says to me, you've got no reason to be nervous, that usually makes me more nervous.
Yeah. What you're actually saying is you don't matter in this context, isn't it? You're actually saying to somebody, you don't matter what you think. Doesn't actually matter.
You've got to,
missing people. Yeah,
I think as well, it would be, you have to understand as well, and there's a very easy thing to do for all of us, because there is quite a lot of this us and them attitude. I don't think that examiner is particularly sitting in the back hoping you're going to fail. I think if they are, they're probably a sociopath. So, so that's just, you don't get into this job for that reason. You don't get into any of these jobs for that reason.
Agreed. Terry, then Mick. And we're running over. You know how people get...
Yeah, I'm going to do a quick experiment with you guys. Right, I can see 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of you. So 9 now, Sam is back. Right, quick experiment. I'm going to bet, who wants to take me up on this bet, that you could say the alphabet in 1 minute without making a mistake. £100 bet. Put your hands up if you accept the bet. Seriously, the alphabet in 1 minute without making a mistake. You wouldn't take that bet?
I think we know you too well, young man.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
What's
I'm
the
looking
catch?
for the
It's
trick.
not me asking. It's someone sensible asking, and you're not going to have to do it now. Don't worry. Who would take the
You're
bet?
gonna have to do it backwards or something. That's what you're saying.
If that was on the face of it exactly what you had to do, and I had that in writing, then yes.
Yes, and most people would. Most people would. But
Say
now,
it forwards in English.
forwards in English, without making a
Yeah.
mistake, in 1 minute, would you take the bet?
Without
anyone
having to
gonna
drink
do
a
it?
pint
Then
at the
I'm
same time?
No, just that. It's just me
Yeah,
asking,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, I'd do it.
Because
Okay.
it's you asking,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I
Okay,
think most people would. But then if we switch it,
there we go.
would you do it backwards? How many people would? And the difference is, you know you can do it. And that's going back to what
If
Di
it-
said. It's the
written
preparation. If you know
down.
you can do something, you know you can do something. The nerves are always going to be there, always. But if you know you can do something, the nerves are a different kind of nerves. They're almost. It's
Yes.
not like a fear nerve. It's not more excitement nerve.
Yeah.
I
There's
think.
hardly any difference. In fact, it's very difficult to tell the difference if you actually analyse the feeling of nervousness and fear, because you get the same sensations.
And
Very
excitement.
difficult
Excitement's the same as well.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, I'm saying the wrong words. I'm thinking exactly what you're saying, Steve. I'm just not saying the right words. I'm just having a moment, senior moment. But yeah, we just don't trust you, Terry. Did you notice? We just all went, oh, it's Terry asking. We're not going to answer. There's some catch to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you actually ever get pupils in your car? Sorry. Nick.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said there. But also, it's controlling the negative thoughts as well. A lot of people have negative thoughts. I can't do it. I always get nervous and things like that. And you've got to control. Sorry about that. The dog's trying to get in the room. You've got to control the negative thoughts. Some of the stuff I've done, in the past, I haven't been nervous about because I've gone out there without thinking, if you know what I mean, without having them negative thoughts, just positive thoughts all the time. I'm going to get back to there. I'm going to get back, that sort of thing. And it to me, or for me, it's quelled them nerves. But when it comes to standards checks, things like that, audit, on my audit, just before lockdown, I got in the car and my mouth just went dry. So that was the nerves that I had then. But other things that I've done, and I've done a lot, dodgy stuff, then no nerves at all, because I'm quelling them negative thoughts.
I think your experience is your life experience, Nick. That's a very different, and I think you understand adrenaline and how to think through it
and you're
much
right.
differently than the rest of us.
You're right as well with the nervousness and excitement is the same sort of thing. So when I was getting into some of the scraps that I've been into, I wasn't nervous, I was excited.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. We've really got to do a recap in a minute. Or maybe we won't do a recap because Kev isn't here.
Just really quickly as well, I think sometimes over-focusing on the competencies on the list on the standards check form, I think can make you more nervous. Because I think you just over-focus on sort of, oh bleep, I've got to fit all of that in to this lesson. Whereas I just think, and I can't take credit for this comes from somebody else, you can actually, each of those sections, you can just boil down into something a little bit simpler, just was it appropriate? Was it safe? Did it work? Don't focus on any of those individually. Try and focus on it as a whole, and then you're not going to be, oh, have I covered that one? Have I covered that one? Have I covered that one? And as well as that, the other thing I would say, and again, I can't take credit for this one, don't try and make your lesson fit into the little box that the examiner has to fill in to say that this was the topic of the standard. That's their job, not yours.
Yeah,
they need to
absolutely.
find where that fits in. You do what the lesson you need to do. Don't create nerves for yourself by thinking, oh well, no, I can't do this lesson because that's not gonna tie in with these little tick box. That's not your problem.
That's right.
And
I think
Fiona, just on that, Steph's mentioned that for nerves, you can get in touch with Diane Hall and do a tapping routine.
you can
So
do that tapping. You can do Kev's confident drivers, which is, whichever. Kev's one is specific to the person. So tapping works for some individuals and it wouldn't work for others. So Diane Hall's thing, Kev's thing, Woody Woodward, I can see it, Terry, I'm getting it in a minute. They are all plugs, but I'm trying to keep it even. But Keith Woody Woodward has a site for everybody. And it's just whatever thing works for you guys. And I'm going to summarize with, do you do a standards check lesson every time? Well, that choice is yours. But if you do, what are the benefits of it? There's a question. What are the benefits of aiming to do that standards check session, style delivery with all of that input and all of that care into that person? Well, how is that going to benefit you? For, like Linda said, Linda had all that trauma going on in her life and yet still managed, with all of those horrible things going on, still managed to, because she was doing what she does every day. She was doing what she does every day, so there was nothing new to it. So think about how you can maintain that. How can you get better? How can you be sure so that when you have the nerves, it's the excitement version of the nerves that you're going to show off your skills. You're actually going to sit there in that seat and go, this is how good I am. So is it that you need to do some training with someone? I don't know. Is it that you need to reflect and do some things? If you look at all the webinars in these things, everything, all the tools that you need to get better and better and better as a PDI or an ADI is all in these webinars. You're getting all this information from all of these people and you're thinking about things yourselves, wherever you are, wherever you're sitting, you're doing it all on your own. It's a weird thing. Do we need a recap, guys? Or should we just say, if you need a recap, the quickest thing to do is watch an hour and 10 minutes of a webinar. So what else you can do? Because I'm worried.
I think the main thing, Di said it, to be quite honest, is at the end of the day, your standards check starts again from that moment that you stop doing that first standards check. It continues every time. Yeah,
I agree. I'm conscious of time. Go on, Steve.
I was just going to say as well, something that I've started doing. I mean, I don't do it as regularly as I would like to. But at the end of every day, just sit there. We've all got this SC1 form on our iPads or on paper. Just sit there, have a look at it. Just compare what you've done that day to what it says on there. It's all there. It hasn't got to, no one is at the top of their game 100% of the day, every day, 7 days. It doesn't. We all have peaks and troughs the same way our learners do. But just sitting there thinking, did I really achieve that in this lesson? Was that achieved? It's not criticism, as somebody else said earlier on. You've got to reflect on yourself. If you can make that a daily habit of reflecting on that, why not try it?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you need help learning to reflect, again, finding a way of doing that is going to help you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you to the participants here. Thank you to you guys on Facebook as well. Anything that you need, you think it should be written in the thread, please write it in the thread. There is no Why Don't You next Tuesday. It'll be Friday. The next Why Don't You will be Friday the 5th, because there's at least 2 of us that can't attend next Tuesday. So Friday the 5th, we haven't chosen the subject. As usual, I'll put the information up as early as I can. Share it about, sign up as early as you can, please, because some people are getting left out because I haven't got a chance to send them the emails. I'm going to click end recording on Facebook. Thank you guys for the Facebook watching. And then we'll stop it here. So we've